framers seems to have been forgotten. There is no clearer example of the consequences of technology lost than that of the American steel industry in the second half of the 20th century. By the end of World War II, as the self-proclaimed arsenal of democracy, the United States led the world in steel production. Steel corporations were the backbone of the economy in many cities of the East and Midwest, and had provided generations of Americans with secure, stable employment. That began to change as the U.S. objective shifted from winning the war to aiding the vanquished in the new post-war world. Believing that strong economies worldwide would make renewed hostilities less likely, America embarked on a program to provide industrial aid to her defeated former enemies. This was particularly effective in Japan, where U.S. experts advised the Japanese in the development of their steel industry and markets. Very soon, the Japanese possessed steel-producing facilities that were in some cases better and more modern than their American counterparts. As they became more competitive, the cooperation between the U.S. and the Japanese began to turn into a rivalry. As this rivalry intensified, so did the American desire to keep its latest advances to itself, as did the efforts of the Japanese to discover those advances by any means necessary. In the 1970s and early 80s, American steel companies, in an attempt to regain their preeminence in the industry, invested heavily in research and development. Through various forms of espionage, the Japanese were able to learn, utilize, and reap the benefits of the American research without undertaking the massive expenditures necessary to develop it. Consequently, Japanese companies with their comparatively low overhead expenses were able to undercut American steel prices time and time again. As a result, since World War II, the Japanese steel industry has experienced the most remarkable growth of any in history. But Japan's gain is America's loss. The empty steel factories all over the Rust Belt of the Ohio Valley stand as a reminder of the loss of jobs, the economic upheaval, and the diminished opportunities suffered by thousands of American families.
I've traveled through that valley, and I've met some of the families, and the poverty that they now experience is immense. It is grave. It is heartbreaking. Simply because the steel industry was unable, partly due to the neglect of Congress, to protect its intellectual property assets.
The story of the steel industry is but one of many. In this age of modern communications, vast quantities of information can occupy a very small space and can change hands in an instant. Once obtained, private information can often be accessed so quickly that the victim of the theft may be powerless to do anything to counteract the advantage gained by an adversary. The very essence of business is competition, and a loss of competitive edge translates into a loss of money, jobs, opportunity, and economic freedom. Much of the theft of information through industrial espionage goes unnoticed. Most of the theft that is discovered goes unreported, but no theft is without impact.
In the last 20 years, we've seen some big changes in the way companies do business in the international marketplace. Companies and foreign governments have changed the way they gather information, but many of our laws have not kept up with those changes. When the Cold War ended, our former enemies and even our long-term allies began retooling their spy operations. They didn't fire their spies, they simply changed their targets from military to economic secrets. A change which is costing America good, high-paying jobs.
Anyone that needs the technology is a suspect for espionage. It is quicker and easier and cheaper to recruit a scientist than it is to develop the technology yourself.